Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Senior Living Smart Partner webinar. Today, we'd like to welcome Donna Cutting, the founder and CEO of Red Carpet Learning Systems Incorporated. She and her team help professionals in senior living field and other organizations turn prospects into customers and residents into raving fans by engaging their team to deliver an outstanding customer experience. She is also the author of the book, The Celebrity Experience: Inside Secrets to Delivering Red Carpet Customer Service, which was published by John Wiley & Sons, and a forthcoming book to be announced soon. Donna worked in the field of elder care and senior living for 12 years and has been training and consulting senior living professionals for another 15 years. Her clients include 5-Star Senior Living, Mather Lifeways, Country Meadows, Methodist Senior Services, and many more. She makes her home in the mountains in Asheville, North Carolina with her husband, Jim. Please feel free to send your questions or comments, or feel free to tweet questions or comments at GetSLSmart or #SmartWebinar. Now let me turn the webinar over to Donna, who will roll out the red carpet and discuss 5 tips to help you tap into the link between service and sales. Donna, let me turn the webinar over to you now.
Great. Thank you so much, Renee, and welcome everyone. Good afternoon, and I know we have some people on the line from the West Coast, so I'll say good morning to you. So glad you're all here. We are going to talk today about rolling out the red carpet and specifically tapping into the link between sales and the service experience. So let me start with what you're looking at this morning is a photo of one of our favorite clients at Red Carpet Learning Systems, Patrick Duffy. And no, that's not the man from Atlantis, for those of you who recall that reference. But he is the executive director of a 5-star senior living property at Leisure Park. And I just love something he said to me a couple of times as we were working together. And it's this quote right here, that sometimes we spend so much time and resources on, let me just go back to that, resources on sales and promotions and gimmicks, and when really that time and those resources would be much better spent on making sure that your community and your staff are tour ready. And I think that what, excuse me while I just turn this, there we go. There we go, that's better. I think that what you'll notice is that as we go through, that we're not just talking about making your building tour ready, but even more important, what we're talking about is making sure that your people and your team members are tour ready. In essence, making your entire team an integral part of your sales force. I think sometimes that we forget that the experience that we create is a huge part of what makes us attractive to our customers and prospective residents. As a matter of fact, there are studies after study, this is one by De Facto Research, that says customers will pay extra to guarantee that they're having a better experience. And I think that that is even more true in the field that we're in senior living, because here we're really talking about people's lives. I've got another customer who says, gosh, we have people's lives literally in our hands, and so we want to make sure that we are creating the best experience possible for them. So if you look at this slide here, your customers, and I sometimes will use the word customer rather than resident, because you have many customers. So residents are one and probably your primary customer, but you also have their family members and your guests, anyone who interacts with your senior living community, vendors, and also your team members and your coworkers. And they could be anywhere on the spectrum. So obviously nobody wants to have angry customers customers. Sometimes we do, and the reason we want to turn those angry customers around right away is that those are the people who are going to be out there talking. And while it used to be that they might tell two friends and so on and so on, now they're getting on social media. They're getting on websites like care.com and even Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and there is no field out there that is immune from what we used to call word of mouth, and now one of my colleagues calls world of mouth. And angry customers will definitely do that. Or they could just be dissatisfied, so not really happy. Maybe they're not out there actively detracting from your reputation, but they're not 100% satisfied, and they're definitely not going to be loyal, won't be giving you referrals. You could have people who are satisfied. They're happy, but they're not ecstatic, and we don't really want to keep people there either, because those people are not going to talk in a positive way, and you haven't really earned their loyalty. So what we want to have is delighted residents and delighted customers, and the difference between a satisfied customer and a delighted customer is that unexpected something that makes them happy. And when you do those unexpected things, the above and beyond service experience consistently again and again and again, that's what turns a delighted resident or a delighted family member or customer into an advocate for your company and your organization, into raving fans. And that, I would believe, is our ultimate goal, because that is where that bridge between delighted and advocates is where we really turn that service experience into a sales experience as well. And so, like I said, and I think we're all aware that today our shoppers, people who are looking for senior living communities, are approaching it in a much different way than any time in the past. The first thing that family members do is they go online and they start looking at websites like caring.com and other resources. They start asking their friends, but again, looking online, looking at reviews. Those reviews have become even more critical than they were in the past. And even just as recently as yesterday, I was talking with a friend of mine who is actively looking for her parents. And I'll talk more about her as we go on today, but she is in that time period of her life, and she mentioned to me that she was online doing research and narrowing it down to 10 places she was going to call. 10, which surprised me. I always thought maybe 4 or 5, but she was going to narrow it down to 10 places, to maybe 5 that she would visit, and then maybe 2 that she would show her parents once they were ready to make those trips. So it's a much longer process, and our reputation out there is so much more critical than it was before. Again, another study, Bain & Company, determined that a customer is 4 times more likely to defect to a competitor if the problem is service related rather than price or product related. And what happens oftentimes is that we will focus a lot on what our buildings look like and what our property looks like and what our services are that we offer, and not a lot of time and resources on the experience that we are creating. And that takes everybody. We'll talk about that as we go on to it. It takes everybody, the entire team, to create that experience. One of my master trainers, our red carpet master trainer, Katie, used to work in the hospitality industry. And, one of her favorite things to say is, you can't always have a 5-star hotel, because a 5-star hotel means that you have certain amenities. And if you don't have those amenities, then you will never be rated a 5-star hotel. However, you can, with your people, create a 5-star experience. And so the same goes for us in senior living. We have newer buildings and, buildings and CCRCs and popping up every single day. They might be right next to you, and they might have the newest and the best and the brightest. And perhaps your building is older, but the truth is people are also, in fact, even more so, I believe, looking at the experience that you create and the relationships that they build within your community. So while you may not have the newest community or 5-star in terms of amenities, you can definitely be 5-star and red carpet in terms of the experience that you create. Now, I'd like to just take a moment and really get us thinking about the cost of not doing that, of not focusing on the consistent service experience. So let's just, this is a hypothetical example, but it's also a very real truth. Let's just say that it costs $3,000 a month for someone to live in your community. And you have a resident and a family member, and they are not happy. And so they've gotten to the point where they're so not happy that they are looking around for other communities. Again, another friend of mine just went through this, just went through the ordeal, really, of moving her mom because she was just not happy with the service experience. So if they were paying $3,000 a month and her mom was going to live there for, say, another 2 years, then you would think that that was okay, $72,000 that community lost. Except that wouldn't be right, because my friend actually told every one of her friends. She talked about it on Facebook. She talked to me about it. She talked to us at lunch about it. She called people and asked for their advice. She named the community. She named the executive director, on and on. Of course, we're all about the same age as her, so many of us have parents that we're thinking about this for too. And so let's say one of her friends was in that space where she was going to be looking for her mom. Well, she's not going to look for her mom or her dad at this community. So they've lost, if mom and dad would have moved in there and would have stayed for 2 more years, they lost another $72,000. So that's $144,000. Let's say word gets back to one of your referral sources. They refer 20 people a year. They've heard these kind of stories time and time again. And so now they're going to stop referring to you. They're going to refer to a competitor. That's over $1 million now that your organization has lost because of one negative service experience. So it really, when we teach this actually to not just managers, but to frontline employees, to really say, look at the impact that the service you deliver has, not just on that person in front of you right now, but also on your company as a whole. And so it's really, just, to me, it's just a no-brainer to really look at, okay, well, we really have to make sure that we're giving a better service. Because on the other hand, and Garrett Richter, who was the CEO of First National Bank of Florida, put it so well to his employees that I don't think I could say it any better. He said, if you roll out the red carpet for billionaires, they don't even notice. You roll it out for millionaires, they expect it. When you roll out the red carpet for thousandaires, they appreciate it. But when you roll it out for hundredaires, they run out and they tell everyone they know. So if you really put time and effort on creating that service experience, not just for new or prospective residents, but also an ongoing experience, people will start to talk. And it definitely creates a link between your service experience and sales. So we talked today about, or we promoted that we were going to give you 5 tips. And the very first one is what we're going to start talking about now, and that is that truthfully, the service experience and the link between services and sales is really all about emotional connection. It's about making that person in front of you, that prospect, that resident, that guest, that family member, that coworker, feel like the most important person in the room. And let me stop there and tell you a little bit more about my friend who is currently shopping for her mom and dad, actually. So she is going through right now one of the most trying times with her parents. It's taken a very long time to convince them that they need help. She is an only child, and so she has been going through quite a challenging time trying to manage this, run her own business, run her own life. It's very, very hard to watch her parents go through the aging process. Her parents, obviously, are dealing with their own mortality issues and not liking the fact that their independence is taken away, and very, as you know, very similar to all of the things that our residents and our prospective residents are going through every single day. And something she said to me yesterday was, I can't tell you the difference between people who are simply in it for their tasks. They are, it's all about filling out the paperwork, telling me what their services are, do this, do that, and I can just tell that they're looking right past me as a person. And she said, and then on the other side of it, I have people who truly are showing me that they care. They still have the paperwork that I have to fill out, but somehow on some level, she said, I can't explain to you what it is, but on some level I can just tell that they see me for me, that they understand what I'm going through, that they have empathy for that. And those are the first people that I'm calling, because she said, and she's telling me as a customer service professional, she said, you need to teach them, about what we're going through. And this is the experience that she's having. This is unfortunately the experience that I had a couple of years ago when we were going through something similar with my dad. And it was so interesting to me being on the other side of it, because I've been in senior living now for almost 30 years, and have provided services and have been consulting and training and working on the front line. And then all of a sudden I was on the other side of it, and we were dealing with everything from hospitals to home care to skilled nursing to looking at assisted living, and then just the entire, in hospice eventually, and the entire gamut. And it was really, it was the worst personal experience my family went through ever. And I could feel it in my body. I could just feel it in my body when people were not paying attention to us as people, and they were all about their tasks. So the very first thing I want to say is that we really want to look at reminding our team members on a daily basis that even though we see these people every day, sometimes we don't see them for what they're actually going through. That people are going through changes and challenging times. And one of my favorite quotes is from Maya Angelou, who recently we just lost, but I've always loved this quote. She said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So really thinking about the link between the service experience and sales, when you are taking a prospective resident through a tour experience, or when you are moving in a new resident, really keeping the primary focus on them as opposed to you and as opposed to your community. I mean, yes, you need to share information, But really, the more you listen, the more you learn, the more you focus on who they are and what they're going through and how you can help, the better service experience they're going to have. And there are so many different ways to do that, and we'll continue as we continue. You'll learn some of those, but really looking at how do you personalize that tour experience. So the first thing to really do is make sure that you do very excellent discovery. Really sit and listen, learn who this person is, learn things about them that you can use to help them, but then also to create that delighted moment for them. So one of the things we teach a lot of our clients is the use of, someone's names, and you can use people's names on a welcome sign, on a menu, on a note card. There are all kinds of different ways. Really getting your team members to get to know visitors before they come. We'll talk more about that in a minute, so that they can use their names as well. And we even had an example just a couple of weeks ago where we did this training with one of our biggest clients, and their team member went back, and I won't tell you exactly what they did, but they used a prospective resident's name in a very creative way. This prospective resident, they'd been courting for a long time. They had narrowed it down to this community and a different community, and they called back that afternoon and said, it was no contest. Everybody agreed it was you. And I think it was really because they showed with everything they did that they were listening, that they were focused on that person, as opposed to just trying to sell their beautiful building in their community. So with that as the foundation, that we're really talking about emotional connection here, the second tip is that nothing really great happens unless everybody acts. And that's where we talk about getting your entire team feeling and understanding that they are an integral part of the success of your community. So if you're looking to get to 100% census, to have 80% or even more of your referrals come from residents and family members, this cannot be something that is done simply by the sales and marketing team and the executive director. It means that everybody has to understand that they have a part in that, and the part that they play has to do with the experience that they create. So let me give you an example. My friend that I've been talking about, who's looking for her mom and dad, she has specifically discounted 2 communities. And the reason that she discounted them immediately is that when she called them, she did not like the way the person on the other end of the phone answered the phone. And so those communities, and I don't know who they are, but they're not even getting an opportunity to showcase their friendliness, to showcase their beautiful buildings, because she made one phone call, didn't like the way it was handled, and so she's just taken them off her list of possibilities. And so when you think about that, you think about the fact that everybody that they interact with during on the phone, during a tour, is making an impression. So doesn't it mean that it's worth spending some time really making sure that everybody, as Patrick said at the very first slide, is tour ready? The truth is that your service experience is only as good as your least engaged employee. So tip number 2 is let's get those employees engaged in the process, because we want to have that emotional connection and consistent experience for every customer, meaning prospective residents, their family members, guests, every customer, every employee, at every touch point. So from the front desk to the activities room, to when they're talking to the maintenance director, and as they're leaving to say goodbye, and on the phone, every single time, to really think about making that an experience. So some of the things that that I encourage you to do, and a very simple thing to do, is first involve everyone in the process by giving them the information that they need to know in order to roll out the red carpet for your prospective residents and your guests. So something we've started to do with our clients is ensure that not only does sales and marketing, when they know that they have a tour, sales and marketing, when you know that you have a tour that's coming in, hopefully you know their name, and hopefully you have done the discovery that you need to do in order to know a little bit about not just the needs of this resident or prospective resident, but also their wants, their likes, their dislikes. Are they a veteran? Do they have a dog? You know, is their cat the most important thing in the world to them, and they're excited because you allow pets in your community? Or, you know, or is their favorite color orange? You know, whatever it is that you discovered. Once you, as sales and marketing team, have that information, of course, typically people pass that information on to the management team. Okay, so this morning we have so-and-so coming in, and maybe you let them know what you know about them, or you might just say we have a tour coming in at 2. Well, first of all, the more information, obviously without violating HIPAA laws, but the more information you can share with the management team, the better. And then the big key is that the management team then shares that information with the front line. We often encourage our clients to do that with shift meetings. So it's one of the very first fundamental tools that we engage people in, is to have regular shift meetings with their staff so that they are more informed on a daily basis. And some of the things that they're informing them are on who's coming in for a tour, tell them a little bit about them, who's coming in as a new resident, you know, really having a discussion about what are we going to do to make this new resident and this prospective resident feel comfortable. I love that there are a lot of communities out there now teaching their team members to do what they call 30-second commercials. So getting a 30-second soundbite on what it is that they do in the community, which is great. However, getting back to that and building an emotional connection means that it's more about them and less about you. What I would love to see people add to that is the questions that they could ask about that resident. Or if someone, you know, we teach, if you know that Mrs. Smith is coming at 2 o'clock and she has a dog named Sparky, you know, to let your team members know that, because then they may be able to bring up, hey, I understand you have a dog named Sparky and we love dogs around here, or I have a little dog, and they build that little relationship with them. One of our clients, who was a VP of marketing, you know, said she, again, sort of on the other side, she went through this process with her parents a few years ago, and she said she was really surprised at how they made their decision, because it wasn't the most beautiful building that they chose. The property and the community that they chose to live in was the community where they built the most relationships through the sales process. So it was the place where they felt like they had friends. Well, your prospective residents are going to feel like they have friends if you get your team members ready to greet them, to build that connection with them. Your prospects are going to leave feeling like they have friends. Let me talk about that a little bit. Oftentimes what we will hear is, we wish our team would do that. We wish they would smile. You know, they won't make eye contact, or I'll walk through the building and they'll say hi to me, but they won't say hi to the person that I'm touring. You know, they look right past them. And what we have noticed is that the reason for that most of the time is twofold. One, they do not know that that's an expectation. So we assume sometimes that they should know that, but if it hasn't been clearly stated as an expectation, they may not feel like it's their place. And the other part of that, the second reason, is that maybe they're not 100% comfortable. So we all know that sometimes we have team members who aren't as comfortable with those social situations, or maybe they come from different cultures where eye contact means something different, than it means here, and they just don't know what's appropriate. They're afraid that if they make a mistake, that they're going to get in trouble. So it's easier to just not make a mistake. So what we found is that when we set the expectation, and then so it's clear that that's what they're supposed to do, and then we give people a chance to practice in a way that's fun. We actually get them in a room and they smile at each other and they make eye contact, and we teach them how to give a good handshake. And when we do that, the very next day they are doing it differently on the floor. And that's all we changed, was make the expectation clear, give them a chance to practice in a really fun way, and the next day they're doing it differently. We had a marketing director come in tears. She was so excited. She said it was the best tour she ever had. The painter actually got down off his ladder and shook hands with people, and it wasn't a big deal. It was very easy to have that happen. They just didn't know that that was what was expected of them prior to that training.